Warning: spoilers ahead for The Rings of Power Episodes 1 and 2. Frodo Baggins: The Return of the King ending feels infinitely clearer after Galadriel's exploits in The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power. Upon returning from his perilous journey to Mount Doom, Frodo finds the Shire's comforts no longer soothe his soul, and The Lord of the Rings concludes with the now legendary Hobbit joining the likes of Galadriel, Gandalf and his uncle Bilbo in sailing for the Undying Lands, otherwise known as Valinor. The return of the King. Peter Jackson's live-action movie adaptation especially remains vague on precisely what this means for Frodo. What does life in Valinor look like for a hobbit? What does this blessed realm offer that Bag End cannot? Is Frodo dying? Perhaps most important of all, what does Frodo find on this very final adventure? The answers to these questions are largely left to the imagination, since The Lord of the Rings divulges precious little regarding the nature of Tolkien's mysterious and holy land across the sea. The Rings of Power's opening episodes finally remedy that, giving audiences a far greater understanding of the Undying Lands than any live-action Tolkien production prior, or, indeed, The Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit books. The Rings of Power provides viewers with that long-awaited moment of finally understanding the true meaning behind Frodo Baggins' ending. Rings of Power reveals what happened to Frodo after ROTK. The Lord of the Rings ends with Frodo's ship sailing from the Grey Havens into the distant horizon, leaving his next steps a mystery, but The Rings of Power reveals pretty much exactly what would happen to the Ringbearer next. Galadriel's journey across the sundering seas in The Rings of Power Episode 1 perfectly mirrors Frodo's final voyage, which, poetically, an older Galadriel was also present for, meaning Frodo would witness the same parting clouds and brilliant light folding around him, the same spontaneous chorus of music, and the same immediate feeling of peace and lightness. The only difference is that no one leaps overboard on this occasion. The mental image of Frodo being pulled toward a golden glow like Galadriel and her soldiers in The Rings of Power makes for a fitting finale to his time in Middle-earth. The Rings of Power's opening flashback sequence also gives an idea of the new home Frodo would enjoyed after reaching land. The two trees, Tulperion and Laurelin, obviously are standing by the time Frodo and co. arrive, but the same peaceful streams, rolling hills, wondrous architecture, and epic landscapes would greeted the Hobbit upon arrival. The Rings of Power depicts Valinor almost like a super shire, but with an elven touch, which suggests Frodo and Bilbo both would felt at least somewhat at home in this strange land of mighty immortal beings. Now we know why Frodo went to Valinor. The Lord of the Rings explains that Frodo is still burdened by carrying the One Ring, and though his physical weariness from trekking across Middle-earth might be healed, spiritual scars are still troubling him. Such pain prompts Frodo to abandon Middle-earth altogether and make for Valinor alongside Bilbo and the elves, but the return of the king doesn't really address how the Undying Lands can help him, giving only a vague sense that Frodo will be better off there than in the Shire. While there's no special hospital for One Ring victims in Valinor, The Rings of Power better explains why Frodo makes the trip. The light of Valinor is so profound, it immediately soothes all those who witness it. Even Galadriel's thirst for vengeance is almost quenched by the glow. As Elrond describes in The Rings of Power Episode 1, only in the Blessed Realm can that which is broken in you be healed. Sure enough, a noticeable look of divine calm washes over the faces of Galadriel's company when they reach their destination, and this finally explains why Frodo wanted to leave. Only a light as powerful and all-encompassing as the light found in Valinor could possibly counteract the darkness eating away at Frodo's soul. What happened to Frodo after he reached Valinor? J.R.R. Tolkien writes little on Frodo Baggins' final years in Valinor, but offers a select few reassurances that his ending was peaceful and happy. One common misconception is that, by entering the Undying Lands, Frodo became undying himself, but that isn't so. While he still benefited from Valinor's overwhelming grace, entering the Blessed Realm does not impart immortality upon those who aren't immortal already. It's understood, therefore, that the ring-bearer wolf died, albeit most likely long, after he wolved by staying in the Shire. Mr. Frodo's story does, however, have a happy addendum, that the return of the king glosses over. As both a ring-bearer and a member of the Fellowship, Samwise Gamgee was also afforded a ticket to the Undying Lands. So, when his beloved Rosie passed away after a long life together, Sam followed in his dear friend's footsteps and made the lengthy trek to Valinor himself, reuniting with Frodo at the end of their days. The Rings of Power's Undying Lands may not have allowed Frodo Baggins to live forever then, but they did allow him to stay with Sam until the very end. The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power continues Friday on Prime Video. Join Amazon Prime, watch thousands of movies and TV shows anytime, start free trial now.